all translated in US dollar. In the first quarter, I see that STI outperformed all the other index, but now Japanese index topics and other topics, some style, the topics are outperforming the STI and the S&P 500. Nikkei is underperforming the STI and S&P. See that some important company and large caps perform bad than the mid and the small companies. Performance comparison in the last 12 months in the both domestic currency and the US dollar term. In a domestic currency term, topics performance is not good, but in the dollar denominated term, it will be the time to be all positive returns in all periods, regardless of what period you start to invest. And the performance in US dollar term of the all last 12 months risk return characteristic in the US dollar term. We also see that in the 12 months annualized average risk and return, the mid and small stocks topics are outperforming in the other stocks. And the risk characteristic is also smaller than the other Japanese style index. But we also see that the risk is almost twice riskier than STI and also much riskier than the S&P. Also, domestic currency dollar performance index performance, we see that it's in the 3Q 2024 there was a bad negative return in all Japanese index because of the appreciation, Japanese JPY appreciation. But today, the JPY appreciation is not affected too much against the index returns. And here the style return risk characteristic in the last 12 months. TTM means the 12 months. And there's a core, large, mid, small, and the normal topics and Nikkei 225. We see that the mid 100 stocks perform better than the others. And sorry, y-axis is a return. And there's a negative return in topics. And the x-axis is horizon. X-horizon is the magnitude of the risk or standard deviation, the annual standard deviation. So the large Japanese stock is riskier than the small and mid in the last 12 months. And topics large also riskier than the mid and small stocks. And Nikkei also in the middle of this is core and large. They are the main composition of Nikkei 225. So in the first one half of 2025, they're the small and mid outperform than the topics and rising and the core 30 large stocks. And Nikkei 225 is most underperforming stocks, performing indexes. And in the Q2, second quarter 2025 specific, also the topics and small and mid cap is underperforming. Well, let's move on to the some review in the monetary policy and the macroeconomic review in second quarter. Let's start the summary. The politics, the hostile prime minister and the Real Democratic Party losing support further. LDP is unlikely to form one-party government or coalition with Komeito, because Komeito is one second prestigious political party, and we see in some Metropolitan Congress election in last week, when the core method is not as dominant seat as before. So, and the Congress election of the Tokyo Metropolitan is some indication of the next upper house elections. It's likely that the LDP have to take another coalition with more than one or two other parties. Inflation is the source of political instability. So price rise and the other CPI and food prices rise severely. So there's some public want to conduct alleviation of the consumption expense increase. So public support consumption tax rate cut. But if it were done, it's likely to deteriorate inflation further. BOJ suggested a rated hike. BOJ determined that rated hike is postponed and quantitative tightening is slowed. They also hint at YTC comeback, as Ueda say that the controlling of the long-term interest rate may be possible, and their attitude may concentrate on government fiscal burden. In the U.S. version, tariff by IEEPA probably be rejected. Now it's in the court, the first court decision, it was rejected, but they will go faster by the Trump administration, while rollback tariff continued. Some of the tariffs are backed by the law, so by optimal tariff theory, the tariff may be partially offsetted. By optimal tariff theory, I'll explain later, the stronger one tariff be compatible. Stronger tariff will maximize the welfare of the US residents. Let's capture the two economic theory. First one, fiscal theory price level. It's captured that the relationship between the fiscal consumption and the price level of the economy. Assumption is that people optimize utility by optimizing the scheduled consumption in lifetime. They are located that there's no big change of the consumption and the utility, or the degree of happiness, so that they avoid some low consumption period and in the low, not to make the low consumption period and high consumption period and normalize in the periodic in their lifetime, and perceive the possibility of tax increase if by fiscal expansion and say further tax if they perceive that the tax will increase by fiscal expansion and then save for the future tax increase. If government fiscal burden increase and perceived as not sustainable, government inflate away rather than default. So it means that the government bond rarely taking default, but the inflation is mitigate the value of the government debt, and this is called the inflation tax. So when taking apparent default, the weakening making a small debt burden by inflation. Implication is that if people perceive not sustainable debt level, it means that people not determine the debt level, debt is sustainable or not by the debt level. Instead, they perceive the change of the debt caused by the taxonomy and fiscal expansion. After the change of the debt will be caused change the expectation, and the rate of change is not big, and the tax and the fiscal expansion is big enough to make the debt levels be sustainable. There's a further inflation. If debt be perceived as unsustainable, no inflation and not financed by tax increase, hyperinflation occurs by expectations. So the next one is optimal tariff theory. This theory is backed by the best cent of the US White House, the assumption that in one large economic central country like USA have the bargaining power, and they're and with small peripheral countries that they exporting to the US. If tariff be imposed by large country, they have a large bargaining power, and small country devalue the currency and lower export price to offset price increase by tariff. There is an optimal tariff to maximize the welfare of residents in big countries by appreciation of their currency and increasing in tax revenue. And tax revenue is distributed to the residents of the large country. So the strong currency and the tariff combination of tariff and the currency maximize the welfare of the residents. Here, the implication of the ultimate tariff theory is that ultimate tariff is welfare economics only concerning the big countries. Look about the counterpart or the partnering countries. Neglect the total efficiency of economies by international trade and specialization based on the comparative advantage. Optimal tariff assumes the strong dollar, so should not rate cut. So the US should not cut rates. So Japan, the US relation, Japan tax and debt sustainability is questioned, but there's no debt ceiling, moratorium unlikely to occur. Now, some of the CDS spread is not narrower than the US because Japan unlikely to go to moratorium. This is CDS defined credit event, but the moratorium unlikely to occur in Japan. So the CDS spread is narrow. Debt is monitored by Ministry of Finance. It's kind of bureaucracy, or in other words, technocracy. So it's technically unlikely to be go through the default of Japanese bond and going to some credit event. Consumption tax is currently 10%. It's at low level in developed countries in the comparison. So possibility of improvement perceived by the international investors, more increasing the consumption tax into 20% or 30% or larger. And then if there's some distribution mechanism can be enforced, there's some welfare improvements and also improvements of the fiscal condition can be possible. It's possible. And so why Japanese currency is perceived as credible, and why the Japan accumulate the debt level by the almost double of the GDPs. Beyond the possible responses like that, hidden interest rate control is consideration of fiscal condition. The hidden interest rate control, and so the keeping the interest low and the government fiscal burden low, so that if they perceive that unsustainable rate increase, inflation may become uncontrollable. And this is what BOJ want to avoid. So it's likely that the BOJ keeps interest rate low, and FRB tariff is not inflationary if dollar appreciates. Hinted rate cut may be reversed. It's in the last FOMC, FRB postponed the latest cut, and the hinted latest cut. Currently, they hinted the latest cut, but it may revert in the future. It's my analysis and it's my speculation. So it's likely that the Japanese yen weaken again, and the dollar appreciates again. So let's move on to sector overviews. And here is last 12 months sector performance relative price. They all are really so clumsy presentation of the 70 main sectors. There is there are all relative price of topics. And topics in the almost center, they successfully capture the center of the all sector performance. Let's move on to more visible presentation. This is last 12-month sector risk return performance. The bank is in the last 12 months. The bank is in the lightest one. Its standard deviation is also stronger in the other sectors. And retail is come back in the last 12 months. Internet services are relatively low risk with good performance. And real estate and machinery is in the middle, good performer. But most of the half of the like electric appliances is negative performance in the last 12 months. It is related to semiconductor industry. And transportation equipment like automobile, including Toyota and Nissan, they're underperforming, relatively underperforming. And this material is also related to semiconductor, perform bad. Energy also perform bad. Let's move on to the second quarter specific risk return characteristic. Machinery is recovered, and the electronic appliance is also recovered. And but its movement is also co-movement of topics. So it's explained by the beta and also explained by the because of some revision of the semiconductor industries. And the financial and banks are underperforming again, goes and perceived because the BOJ postponed the latest hikes. So let's move on to the sorry, this is not second quarter. This is one half of the 2025. I'm sorry, misrepresentation. This is second quarter specific risk return characteristics. And here is the real estate is appreciating well, and machinery is also performing well. I think the machinery may be because of the some revision of the market revaluing the company related to the armory and defense, and also about some construction of the construction of shipments. Internet services are fair, and also some electronic appliances perform bad in game. So let's move on to the sector and stock focus. I see the semiconductor industries and the entertainment and content IP are two sectors that we have to focus. Continue to choose that exposing industries to good opportunities. A tendency is also emanate. It also appears, and intangible goods and services easy to export and less affected by tariff, because this is logic that still go into the entertainment and content IP companies. So we have to see the semiconductor global tendencies. Hardware focus is the GPU and data center networking. AI ASIC. ASIC is application-specific chips, namely like the tensor core unit or some accelerator of the GPU and CPUs. They are also customized by some specific customer like Google, Amazon, AWS, or the Matters. Technological focus is die shrinkage pattern miniaturization. This is EUV lithography, and EUV means extreme ultraviolet, and this is dominated by the ASML of the Dutch companies. SoC means a system on chip, and this is an integrated chip of the like GPU and CPU are in the same chip. And heterogeneous integration, this is the integration of the this is some techniques to accumulate the wafers in the horizon or the vertical direction, and but also in the horizontal direction. So it's a 3D dimensional integration and condensing the pattern of the chip parser by the 3D dimensional integrations. High bandwidth memory is very important. Like this is produced by the Samsung and SK Hynix. This is high bandwidth memory is very important to accelerate the GPU and the data streaming. And silicon photonics and co-packaged optics. This is produced by NVIDIA and Broadcoms. Broadcom is the first company that created a co-packaged optics of the internet switch. This is silicon photonics is that the power devices and some controlling chips are in the same chips, so that the light signal is turned to the electric signals efficiently, and it can utilize this light signals as it were in the data sending of the electric signals. So networking access is very important. InfiniBand and Ethernet. InfiniBand is the technology by the Mellanox of under the NVIDIA. The NVIDIA bought the Mellanox, the company of the Mellanox of the InfiniBand technology in 2019. To 2019. And the Ethernet, Ultra Ethernet is a technology utilized by both NVIDIA and Broadcom. But Broadcom stressing the advanced advantage of the Ultra Ethernet. And so the scaling of the GPU and some custom chip is important for scale. And the connecting a lot of the GPUs and the custom chips is scaling for inference and learning. So in the application layers, editing generative AI is now turned to the learning to inference. Inference is important process of creating the some output, like some document or the music or some movie and some images. And now the inference also, in the inference process, some validation process is also added. Is in the DeepSeek. So it was utilized as like the automated matching of the advertisement by Meta and Alphabet. Desert Swing and Omnibus application for factory automation and their production optimization. So in the Japanese market characteristic, we have to see that the global leading vendor like NVIDIA and Broadcom AMD is existing, and the foundry for advanced chip is still underway. In Japan, Rapidus is under construction, and 2-nanometer advanced processing is planned to produce in 2027. So our key contribution, Japanese company, is offering the device and instrument for chip making and also for testing to the TSMC. And materials chemicals are also a good contribution, but there's a lot of competitor in the Taiwanese and also in the US. Potential threat is, right, as I said, leveraging the US and Taiwan companies and focus too much on AI. So total volume may go down. It means that the development of semiconductor is driven only by AI. So the total production may go down. So total production, a lot of the obsolete process is volume of the process or normal and obsolete processes go down. So, and in the Japanese company, inferior rewarding and the wages in Japanese company is also bad condition and fail to capturing the talents for further developments. factory is reversion to US. NVIDIA and TSMC now are conducting to meet the some reversion to the US factories. NVIDIA and Jason Fang say that the China the China is they failed to meet I'm sorry in last fiscal year last second quarter of the 2025 NVIDIA failed to export the H20 is some obsolete processing GPU, but it's compact with a high bandwidth memory. This was monitored by US and it was checked. And then they the US government actually banned their exports. Well, NVIDIA say that the restriction for Chinese stopping the AI development of China is impossible, and the development have to including in the US, and it's supported by US companies, and their AI network of the US and to including the US China's AI development is important for strategic importance in the US. So the TSMC is so NVIDIA and the TSMC created a long-term parties commitment for the TSMC Arizona factory and supporting NVIDIA supporting TSMC Arizona factory automation and other foundries like Taiwan, Foxconn, Honghai, and other lot of the foundries moving to the US. So the advent, so that we see that the reversion to factory reversion to US is the Japanese inferior to the some inferior to the US and TSMC put more strengths on the US market, and the factory is going to the US, and the Japanese and Taiwan Japanese lose advantage of the proximity of Taiwan. It's a long-term potential threat. So capturing performance characteristic is that we have this is our method to capturing the performance characteristic. Let's define some tools for capturing some analysis. So the TTM return is a last 12 months return, averaging daily return based on the end of the price in 1 year horizon, annualized in 225 assuming business days, multiply the 250 of the and multiplying average daily return by 250, we get to annualize the average return of each stock or index. Standard deviation is also derived by taking standard deviation of the average return, and then annualized by multiplying the square root of 250 assumed business days. The equity spread is that the ROE minus cost of equity. It's called equity spread. Capture the value added belongs to the equity holders. It's similar to ROIC minus WACC. It's called the economic value added. Also using picking stocks, of which capture the value added belong to the equity and bond holders. Let's move on to mapping. This is TTM risk return mapping of the international companies, Japanese company. The advantage these are instruments companies that are offering to the TSMC, there is product to the TSMC. Advantage is the champion of the return, and Shibaura are also good. But we see that almost half of the company underperforming, and so the negative performance and very risky. There's 80%, similar to 70% of the standard deviation. So it's riskier. So this is the TTM risk return spread mapping of the same companies, same universe. We see that the advantage shows a good equity spread. So there the value added is very good. But in the later tech, underperforming is underperforming in price return, but there good equity spread. We see some the later tech is question their earning quality by scoping capital. This is the underperforming source of underperformance. It's also true that some accounting practice is somewhat different from the US and US GAAP and the IFRS because earning some revenue recognition is different from its Japanese GAAP specific, and also the recognition of some cost is counted as a special cost. The special cost or special loss or special gain is prohibited in the US GAAP and IFRS, and most of the company taking the JGAP accounting practice. So it is also question, and Redatech also a bad performance in the turnover of the inventories, and the correction of the cash is also slowed. So the earning quality and earning sustainability questioned. So why? Because that's because why such a large equity spread can be reflected in the price return. Let's move on to some chemical and materials companies group. Let's see that most of the companies performing negative returns, and so most of the their standard deviation is varied. So the orange highlighted company is the past fixed stocks. CES Chemical is a dominant company of the silicon wafers production. Fujimi is some chemicals about greening and some liquid chemicals required to the semiconductor productions. They are all Fujimi and CES Chemical, and some of the Asahikase is listed as the TSMC award company in the past, but I think that the rating to the TSMC not for the good performance, and also see the equity spread. Equity spread is, we see that the maximum equity spread is narrower than the instruments in the same figure, but the maximum of the equity spread is over 30% in Redatech. What I say over 20% equity spread, but in the chemical materials, most of the almost all of the equity spread is lower than the 20%, and in most of the companies, even though they have positive equity return, price return, they show the negative equity spread. It's suggesting that their accounting earning return is not meet the required return of the equity investors. So we see there's some tendency that the chemical materials are low performing in both the accounting value added and also in the price returns. We see some components of the data center components, specific companies. See that Fujikura is the champion of the last 12 months in the price return, but also show the highest risk. So next, we pass fixed stock. This is a data center chip vendors for some AI specific, but they are custom chip and their customer are not disclosed. And the SWCC are also components. Hitachi, NEC, and Fujitsu are traditional Japanese large caps. They also are producing some components for the data centers. They're performing better than the other instruments. Their pricing return is in the annualized 55%, 13%, 14%. It's very good. And but their volatility is also high. The equity spread versus return is also different. Some of the NC and Hitachi, their ROE is really good, but their required return is exceeding the ROE, so they exhibit the negative equity spread. But Fujikura and Fujitsu SWCC show a positive equity spread. Socionext is going to a bad condition in equity spread and both price returns. So prospective and non-prospective layer is that to AI and no AI, demand for AI chip strong, but no AI normal dominant chip processing by declining trend. And also the such a tendency is backed by the need for overhaul data centers. Chemical material may face overall volume reduction caused by the reduction of non-AI semiconductors. And chemical material company also suffer from conglomerate discount or the efficiency, or they are not focusing on applications. They have many of the lot of the application like the construction materials and some coating for the other industries, because their chemicals also have lot of usage, and they want to lose the portfolio of the application portfolio of the customers. So in the end, they are not application specific. They're not taking the growth strategy of the application specific. So they suffer conglomerate and some discount, and also from some inefficiencies. So I have to comment some comments about Research and Socionext I first picked in the past. Research TTMZ at 12 months average return is negative 40.5%. It's further down by 10.9% in one day in January 2026. And Socionext TTM return is 51.8% negative return. But currently recovery trade from April. The catalyst for underperformance is that the Renesas US import tariff to Japanese automobile. Renesas is dominant customer is the Japanese automobile industries, and it's expected to decrease the sales by US import tariffs. Renesas also suffer from the Chapter 11 of the Wolf Speeds. This is ventures and the dominant AI wafer suppliers. Socionext is also suffer from large cancellation by Chinese hyperscalers. So perspective that the customer chip for AI is at high demand like NVIDIA and GPU. But there's severe competition with Broadcom. It suffer from this. Socionext may suffer from the competition with the Broadcoms. SiC and GaN is called the component materials for the power device chip. The prospective materials, chip and devices, automobile and data centers, but they are all still in R&D phase, because SiC and GaN are compound materials, and the silicon is single crystal, and their yield is higher. The SiC and GaN are lower compound. Their lower yield materials tend to be more and low yield productive yield. So we see some global tendency. Broadcom, NVIDIA, there's a high return, but NVIDIA is the return champions. Broadcom is champions. Micron Technology and SK Hynix is SK Hynix is performing well in the HBM productions. HBM chip vendors, Broadcom, SK Hynix. It's also narrow equity spread, but NVIDIA and Apple is champions. Now the Broadcom is not bad equity spread. SK Hynix are not bad equity spread. NVIDIA and Apple's are sometimes still giants of the calling the value added. So because the Apple have low strong GPM by the software and their application thing, and the cash conversion cycle is negative. Negative conversion cycle means that so much waiting suppliers, payment from suppliers, they converting the almost immediately selling their iPhones and immediately receive the cash from customers, then waiting too much for their suppliers. So they're creating a lot of dividend and stock buyback because of the cash conversion cycle is some affordable for stock for equity returns. In the let's see manufacturing capacity, like foundries and some instrument vendors. KLA Tencor is a good, but in some, the TSMC is also champion of the return, and the risk return ratio is better than KLA. But most of the foundries and the instrument vendors show negative return in the last 12 months. It is because they also suffer from volume down of the overall chip making, and also some large filial competition to gain their aptitude to their exporting to the TSMCs. So TTM equity's term of manufacturing capacity is that the TSMC also show a narrow equity spread. KLA is good narrow equity spread. Applied materials show a good equity spread but show negative returns. So we see some global tendency that the machine capacity not good performance. Let's see that equity spread to AI and cloud vendors. Snowflake is the positive. Highest return is with highest risk. Oracle and IBM, traditional vendors, is now regaining its price return, and Metas is also gaining its power by optimization of advertisement and the creation of the original AI model called Llama. And Amazon SAWS is also a good performer, and Microsoft is also like that. Accenture is the system vendor, but performing not good, though their collaboration with NVIDIA. Equity spread matrix is like that. The Oracle is very good at equity spread, and Microsoft is also like that. We see some gaining power of some traditional vendors like Oracle and IBM because for gaining its power gained by the AI cloud. So this is the remarks that I also mentioned. So market focus trend from hard to soft is evident that the revival IBM Oracle by collaboration with NVIDIA, they are strengthened by the capturing the AI trend. So next focus is the content entertainment IPs, intellectual property and competitive source. There's character, the manga, cartoon, and gaming. User experience and user interface game of the gaming also intellectual property that's capturing the customer loyalties. Not all IP are competitive and monetized. The product first and artist first difference. Product first is like the Disney's movie, like they're creating a team and some making the story by the character by conducting the marketing research of what is in the trend of what is be accepted by the public. The artist first is that the single artist is creating what they want to create, and it is supported by the artistic some differentiated artistic differences by the getting a public support. Universality is otaku. It's called universality is like Disney characters. They're the combination of the some square and the straight lines is like they're like a mascot, and they are adorable for everyone. Otaku is like a Japanese man character. Their artist is specific, the specific kind of the characters. It's someone accepted some contents of the artist, but some not accepted some kind of touch of the characters and their mangas. So the gaining a universality is difficult for otaku contents. And the formal IP application is that a sequel or popular title, a cross-selling of goods. Theme park and amusement resort is created by the Disney Resort. Animation TV drama series movie is also an application of accelerating the value of the IPs. Guest character of other gaming series is accepted by some win-to-pay gaming. Gambling amusement characters is also like a pachinko or some slot machine. This is Japanese specific applications. So my proprietary analysis classifies the IP-related companies, IP creator holders, IP pooling accelerators, IP takers. IP creator holder is like that hold their own IPs. Offering licenses is a source of revenue. Reproduction is a source of revenue. Pooling accelerator is like that they not all of the rights of the IP, or even they do not have the IP, but you hold the right of the use, and their projection of the some movie and contents accelerate the original value of IPs. IP takers that use IP for only strengthening their products and services, typically observing win-to-pay smartphone games that use do not strengthen the value of the original IPs. They only takers. We create a currently classification that IP creator taker and holder. IP creator and holder is Nintendo, Capcom, Sanrio, and N-Cara for Kawaii and VTuber. And IP pooling accelerator is that the Bandai Namco, Toei, or the movie companies, and Oriental Land for Disney theme park in the Japanese market. IP taker is like a win-to-pay type smartphone games producers. And Sankyo is like pachinko, a gambling device instrument company, is also IP takers taking the lot of animation contents put into their gambling machine. DNA may be the board and pooling accelerator takers. They created the the Pokemon TCG gaming in the smartphone game. And they may accelerate the value of Pokemon. They're creating the value, but in the historical records, they failed to create the right such contents in the past. So it's maybe the burden of the taker and accelerators. So let's take a characteristic of the returns. It is IP content holder. There are multiple other competitors. Square Enix is famous for Final Fantasy. In the last 12 months, it get a higher returns, but it's also suffering from the question. Their return is questioned because revenue growth is a lot of questioned because of the lack of new titles. Capcom is also a pick stock, and past pick on Nintendo is also good. Kava is underperforming in the last 12 months. And equity spread, Sanrio N-Color is very good at equity spread on 45% and of the 40 or above 35%. Kava is also good equity spread, but narrower than the N-Colors. Capcom and Nintendo is also good for its equity spread, but narrow compared to the Sanrio and any colors. Let's move on to the IP pooling accelerators. Bushboard is a TCG, a trading game companies, and Bandai Namco is the famous producer like Gundam or Dragon Ball or like that, and they created they are creating the winners. Kakao is also winner of this mapping. Let's move on to the IP and accelerating spread. Let's Bandai Namco and Bushiroad is also creating a good Bandai Namco creating a good equity spread. Oriental Round is good, also creating a good equity spread, but it's narrow one, and they underperform because it's didn't really result. So number of guests is in a declining trend, where its growth is questioned. Risk return IP takers is like that. The win-to-pay type smartphone game producers, some of the DNV, the producer of the Pokemon game, smartphone game, Pokemon card smartphone game, and they get a good return, but it's only a single success. Almost 20 years, once in almost 20 years. Sankyo is also fifth pick stock, and also creating good price returns. And the equity spread is better in the fast stock or Sankyo, and other stock show the almost negative equity spread. So IP take cannot create a much accounting returns relative to the cost required return from the equity holders. Well, Candy stock is like that. Bandai Sanrio Fujikura in the data center components is also they may be a good candidate for pick stocks. They are all the increasing trend, and Fujikura is sometimes decreasing because of the import tariffs actions. So sorry for narrow times. It's a few times a model portfolio is like that, and the past performance is that 4.7 million is down to 4.9 million is good performing, but this was and this is last 12 months half of 2025 performance. We start from the 4.7 million in the December 20th, and then turn to the 4.9 million in the June 20th, and in June 26th, there turn to be 5.1 millions. If its underperformance is only appears in the last only the end middle of the June. So portfolio return is accumulated 6 months price return is 5.5%, and average theoretical return is 7.9%, and its slight increase of the standard deviation is performing good. So the periodic average return is transition is like that. We see that the scatter of the timing of the up and down. So we successfully diversify the risk of the price return. Risk return mapping is like that. Some of the cover and the Pepsi Dream is underperforming and show negative returns, while Advantage and Anchors and the Capcom is also creating a good return in the second quarters. In the first half of 2025, Anchor and Advantage and Capcom is leading our stock performance, while the insource Pepsi Dream cover show negative returns. And financial result is like that. Sorry for a few minutes left. I have to remark about portfolio stocks. Chugai found Pepsi Dream return. My investment theme is that one of the elements industry is the pharmaceutical companies, because many of the research and development, research activity, and some documents were processed by the large language model and create candidates of the new medicine and the new chemicals created by the chemicals and the creating pharmaceuticals. But it may not be passive market, and also Chugai and Pepsi Dream have some negative fifth dream show a negative income growth, so it is difficult to tell when it will increase again, and so they show this kind of development reflecting a positive return in the next investment period. SIC Holding suffer not only SBI Holding, many of the internet security brokerage company suffer from the digital attack. The unauthorized access and improper trade. It is and the monetary authority of the Japan instructed these companies to compensate for the losses for the accounts that suffer from this digital attack. It may be some recurring loss may happen in these companies. Cover and Anycolor. The performance difference may be explained by the operating profit margin. Cover and Anycolor have high profit margin, and Cover is a lower profit margin. And also some spontaneous termination of the contracts of popular VTuber. In Japan, there caused some graduation, has expectation of the whole life production of the Cover. The positive are that no cannibalization by graduate VTubers. Avatar Riser belong to the Cover. So the newly contracted logistics, so that the graduated VTuber not compete with Covers, and some disposable time will be put into the new other VTubers produced by the Cover, if possible. And new constructed logistics center, it may improve the efficiency of the goods selling and then increase the operating margin of the Cover. So I think that Cover and Anycolor combination of this portfolio may be prospective, and also had a risk of the convergence of the operating profit margin for Anycolors. Thank you so much for listening, and I will answer some questions in the narrow time. So thank you so much for. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mi. If there is any question, please share in the Q&A tab. I don't see any question coming in so far.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. One question is that, thank you, but the big Japanese MNC like Itochu, I mean some trading companies, I see that trading company is pushed by the parties of the Berkshire Hathaway, and I think that they are no good at the equity spread and also the ROEs, and PBR is in the low margin, so PBR is because low near to the 1.0, and PBR, so the low PBR imply that the low equity spread. They only meet narrow value added. So, and the business is very important, and they also gain from the appreciation of the energy resources, but it may fluctuate, and it may also suffer from the some instability of international environment. In Itochu is specific to the importing of the soft and some soft and non-heavy industry like some apparel and like a textile. So it may be less affected from the other heavy industry like Mitsubishi and Sumitomo or the Mitsui Bussan, but I think that I excluded this company because of the narrow equity spread. Thanks so much. This is my answer. How is Japanese EV market doing? Is China EV gaining more market share in 2025 in Japan? I think it's some of the EV are supported by the some of the EV are gaining power now, but I think that there's a time horizon. I see that some gasoline stand or gasoline supplying in point is decreasing in the almost negative 3% cumulative growth rate, average growth rate. And I think that there's some inflection point that shift from the gasoline automobile to the PHV or EV, but it's difficult to tell the time horizon to such shift. And also the Japanese market is like the Toyota is supported too much by Japanese customers, but some delaying of the supply of the Toyota maybe opportunity for the Chinese EVs. This is my perspective. Thanks so much. How do you think US tariff will affect Japan market? Yes, it's largely affecting. I think that the US tariff, but the most of the heavy industry is applicable in the rollback the US tariffs. So exporting of the Japanese product may be strongly affected by US tariffs. I think that that's why the small cap and the mid cap perform well in the last quarters, and so we have to focus more on the domestic Japanese market. Some of the Japanese market sub company may accelerated by the inflation. Revenue will be accelerated by the inflation, and some of the company have the bargaining power because of and we have to choose a good operating margin company because they may have the good bargaining power of the customers, and the customer have to choose such the prestigious company because they have no choice to select others. So keep in mind in domestic. This is my question. Thanks so much.
Thanks again, Mr. Mi, for the presentation. We have now come to the end of the webinar today, and we would like to thank all of you for joining. For tomorrow, Wednesday, we have our Thailand analyst, Chutikan and Adison, to share the outlook and stock pick for the Thailand market. Remember to mark your calendar and join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. For the session just now, we will be uploading the recording on Philip Capital's YouTube channel, and you may view the recording of the webinar on your own time. Do take your time to fill in the survey so we can improve your experience with us in the future. You may scan the QR code shown on the screen. Once again, thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Stay tuned, take care, and have a nice day.